All right, I think we can start. So thank you very much for being here today again. I have today the 5th webinar organized by the Italian Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Australia from Sydney, linked to the COVID situation, which is not only about what's happening and what had happened, but now with the ease of the restriction and everyday life slowly going back to normal, and companies as well going back to work properly, it's time to face the future, the near future, what's going to happen, what kind of steps we should undertake, and why we should decide what strategy we should consider before going back to normal. We have here today Kerim El Gabaili. One of our members is the founder and CEO of OnePoint, which is an integrated marketing solution provider who focuses on client commercial outcome, as well as proud ICCI sponsor. So we thank you very much, Kerim, for being here. We have Luke Brewer, our event manager, with us today as well. And I will leave you the word to explain a little bit how this webinar will work and what kind of topics we will go through. Thanks a lot for being here.
Hi, everyone. So we're here today to discuss how we can optimize digital areas of in communications to increase in the areas of sales and marketing, to increase growth in unprecedented times. So we're in this situation now, and all of us really don't know what's going to happen next. So we need to sort of safeguard how we can, our businesses in some way. So Kerim today is going to explain what companies have done in the past, what they've done in past recessions, and how we can use sales and marketing to increase growth. Throughout the webinar, we will also have polls at different times where it'll be a great way for us to see what companies are present with us and what aspects of sales and marketing we are currently using. And that way we can also, target and better tailor to today's webinar. So I'll leave the floor now to Kerim, who will explain this to us.
Thank you, Akele, and thank you, Luke. Welcome to everybody. I will go to the screen share now, so we can put the keynote up. So just bear with me a moment. Okay, can everybody see that? Okay, so business strategies during an economic slowdown. Let's start with the first thing is, I want to make sure everybody has some key takeaways from this exercise around strategy, around operational efficiency using technology, and some of the marketing trends that we see occurring. And also at the end, we'll do a Q&A. So if you have any questions, please leave them to the end. Okay. So let's look at our current environment, because I think whenever you consider a strategy, we've got to look at the big picture. And what we know is that we're in a really volatile environment. We've got trade wars between China, America, Australia, and China. Well, they try and stay away from the word war, trade war with Australia and China, because it doesn't do us either any good. But certainly there is some friction there. We've got an interesting period in time. We've got a transition of global powers. We've got a Cold War going on. We've got rising unemployment globally. We've got unpredictable short-term markets, and we've got unpredictable politics. But amongst all that, I honestly believe that in the next 10 years, we will see the greatest amount of wealth ever being created. And the reason I believe that is because in the last 30 years, China took 300 million people from poverty into the middle class, created a massive market. And I think they will do the same in the next 10 years, which will create a massive middle class in China that will spur on global growth. So that's kind of a little bit our current environment as I see it. Some of the content that I'll be sharing with you, and there isn't a lot of content around how to deal or what strategies to implement during a recession, but this one came from Harvard University, And just to keep it in context, it's in the US market, and it was developed after the global financial crisis, which they called the Great Recession. So we'll proceed. And as the old saying goes, great leaders know how to fight the war, often decides whether they win the peace. So really what you're doing during these troubled times will determine how we, as a business, come out of the recession. And the report says that they really break down into 4 key categories: prevention-focused companies, promotion-focused companies, pragmatic companies, and the progressive companies. So if we look at the prevention-focused companies, which is really the most, it's the knee-jerk reaction, if you like, for want of a better words. They cut costs quickly and deeply. They make primarily defensive moves. They're more concerned about losses, and they want to minimize any downside risks. At the end of the recession in the US, these companies' results are that they had 6% growth in sales, 4% in profit, compared to the progressive companies, who ended up with 13% increase in sales and 12% increase in profits. So post-recession profits from prevention-focused companies typically rose by 600 million, whereas for the progressive companies only increased by, for the progressive companies, they increased by 6.6 billion. Significant difference. Then we look at the promotion-focused companies, and this is really resonates with American culture to really get out there and bring the battle to the front line, which is invest in more offensive strategies. They look at the upside benefits. It's a culture of optimism, but the danger of that is that they can ignore the gravity of the crisis and also ignore the warning signs. And interesting enough, their results weren't significantly more than the prevention-focused companies. So post-recession, promotion-focused companies grew sales by 15 billion and profits by 1.5 billion. On average, far lower than the progressive companies. Again, the average increase was 28 billion in sales and 6.6 billion in profits. So then you've got the pragmatic companies, which is something that we probably would relate to as, you know, as a process, because we look at both. We look at defensive and offensive strategies. They reduce cost of goods. They let go of more people actually than their peers. And they were focused on increasing investment in R&D, sales growth, and advertising. And then we've got the progressive companies. They also looked at reducing cost of goods, but here's the interesting thing that they did. They improved operational efficiencies as a way to reduce costs. Now, if you think about that for one moment, what does that mean? That means that their investment in improving operational efficiencies is something that's going to be carried on even post-recession, right? They also reduced the minimum amount of staff of anybody else. So the other 3 models on average reduced staff, or 56% of them reduced staff, and the progressive companies, only 26% of them reduced staff. So, you know, there's almost 100% difference between one and the other. Now, this research that was conducted by Harvard, from when the recession started and the recession finished, 17% of the researched 4,700 companies either went bankrupt, were acquired, or went back into privately owned hands. Okay, 80% of them in 2010 did not regain their pre-2007 growth rate for sales and profits 3 years after the recession, when this report was done in 2010. And by 2010, only 9% had flourished after the slowdown. So they just sent some interesting numbers and some context around the 4 different models in which companies positioned themselves during the GFC. So, Luke, we're ready to run a poll, which is, which of the 4 categories do you believe you currently fall into at this point in time? Has everybody responded to the poll, Luke?
We've got a couple more just waiting to respond.
We good?
Yeah, we're good now.
Okay, do you want to just give us the results?
So the answers, yeah. Just sharing them now, guys. There we go. Can we all see the results?
Yeah. 33, 17, 17, and 33. Phenomenal. Very good. Okay, you want to close that?
Yep.
Okay, so if we look at then the progressive companies, they really fall into two camps. They look at how they can improve operational efficiency as this investment carries forward, and also how do they invest in growth of their business. So let's look at operational efficiency from our experience. So it's about removing all unnecessary repetitive work. And just as a point of interest in there, there are now bots that you can put on your computers and your staff computers that can give you, after a period of time, a report that says this is all the repetitive work that you do. And then you can choose to do as you please with that, but you can look at ways to minimize that repetitive work. There's ways to integrate the technology through the APIs, and Zapier is a good conduit to that as well. Looking at communication through VoIP systems and Zoom, cloud-based solutions like Outlook and Dropbox, the automation around these things so you can always measure their performances all the way through. And I think that's the key thing. When you're looking at operational efficiencies, using technology, the beauty is you can measure all aspects of it, or at least you can put in place the opportunity or the ability to measure that. So I'm going to share with you what we did at one point. And to put this also in context, around one point, during the global financial crisis, I was CEO of a business that had 4 factories, an office in Piedmont, and we were heavily invested in manufacturing in a sector that had been highly hit by technology and digital. And we won the FBA Deloitte's fastest growing business in the ACT and New South Wales, just as we came out of the global financial crisis. And that is because we implemented some of these strategies. But let me share with you what we did and talk through it. So we looked at system integration, marketing automation, cloud-based solutions, remote working tools, and reporting tools. What did that actually mean in real terms? Well, we used Dropbox as a data asset management system. We used Zoom for video conferencing, and obviously we do still. There's also another tool out there that we're assessing, which is 3CX. We decided to have a virtual office. We have the e-commerce platform. We use VoIP. We have a platform called Teamworks where everybody logs into. And obviously we have Outlook, and we do the calendar share so everybody knows what everybody's doing. So my team now is all remote effectively, even though we have an office in North Sydney. And just to give you a cycle of the process, it's been simplified, but it gives you an idea of the automation. So if I was out and I met you at a networking event, or we came across each other and we shared business cards, my business card, your business card I would open up my app on my phone. I'd scan your business card. All your information would go straight into my CRM, which is a HubSpot CRM. And you would go into a lead generation pool. which would remind me to give you a call. Then if we had the opportunity to quote, we would do that within either Xero or HubSpot, but predominantly through HubSpot. And we would get a digital approval. You would go into our sales pipeline. Once the job was done, or once the quote was approved, it would automatically generate an invoice out of Xero because HubSpot is integrated into Xero. Xero would then push that information into Teamworks. Teamworks would allocate the different components of that job to my different staff members. My different staff would then be able to see what they've got on their daily list of work, and they would commence that work. At the end of the week, I know exactly who's worked on which project, have they done the work within the time frame allocated, and all this information would be then captured in my CRM. All of this happens, and all really I would be doing is scanning your business card and approving the quote, to give you an example of the automation. So, which leads me to another poll around what technology have you used in your business and to help your operational efficiency. Luke, back to you.
Yeah, so poll 2 has just been launched. Waiting for a couple more. A couple more just filtering in now, guys. We'll close the poll in about 30 seconds. Okay, we'll just close the poll now. And can you see the results, Kareem?
No, I can't.
Okay, let's have a look now.
Yes, okay. Okay, all right, lovely. Okay, so if we then take into consideration the progressive focused companies, they did that, they worked on operationally how they can improve their processes. Then they also looked at the growth component of their business. So if we move on to, okay, sales and marketing and the key considerations that, that I've listed are, first thing I would be looking to do is looking at the 20% of the business or clients that give you 80% of work. So we focus on the right profiles. Secondly, one of the things that we're going to look at is where is the market? Where are they, have the trends changed recently? And they have, and I'll share some graphs with you. Can I automate this and keep costs down? And we're going to address that. And thirdly, can I measure this so I can see my ROI? And I'll give you an example of exactly how that can be done as well. So the answer is yes to all the above points. So the first one is, who is the 20% that gives me 80% of my work? So the way we would approach that is through creating personas, setting up a CRM, and creating personas and profiles. So we would be looking to answer certain questions so we can get a very deep understanding of who we're talking to. So what's the background? What's their demographics? What's their identifiers? What are their goals? And what are their challenges? What can we do to help them with those two key things? What are the real quotes around that they're sharing on social media platforms? What are the common objections that they're getting? And what is the marketing message that we would send to them, and what would be our elevator pitch that would resonate with their needs, with their goals, and with their challenges? And that's how we would start at a very high level, creating an understanding of the audience that we want to pursue. Because one of the things about getting an ROI and about tracking performance is being very clear about what are your commercial outcomes that you're looking for, and but more importantly, who are the people that you want to talk to. It helps in buying the right database. It helps in shaping your product. It helps you in hiring the right people. So it really creates focus and clarity by having a clear understanding of who the personas are that you're targeting. So where is the market? I'm going to share some graphs with you which shows that the trends in the social and digital audience. So first one is total number of active social media users globally is 3.8 billion people. So that's a good share of humanity, 49%. And the growth is just under 10% per annum. So it's growing still very strongly. And 3.75 being socially active on their digital platforms, predominantly on their mobile phones, and the penetration on mobile phones of people who are socially active is 99%. So you can see there are three very strong trends. One is how many people, two is the growth, and third is what devices they're on. Then if we go a little bit more granular and we look at which social platforms, Facebook is still beating everybody at 2.4, nearly 2.5 billion people. YouTube coming very close behind. And I think what's holding YouTube back is that creating content for it is a little bit more complex. But in time, as people become better at it and more confident, we'll see YouTube really challenge Facebook. And then you can see all the other social media platforms all the way down to Pinterest. If you're in the B2B marketing, then this will be an interesting one for you. This is 675 million people are on LinkedIn, and 11 million alone just here in Australia. And this is probably the strongest channel for anybody who's doing business to business marketing, because you can really target the audience that you're after. And what have we seen happen recently? Well, we're watching the trends in direct marketing or email marketing. And what we're finding is that people are actually opening up emails a lot more. Now, that could be combined by the fact that we're a little bit forced to stay at home, or being at home and remote working means the pressure of getting things done the pressure of getting things done quickly is not there. There would be in a work environment. So can I automate this and keep costs down? So the way to do this is by using marketing automation platforms. And marketing automation tools will help design and manage the customer journey. Marketing automation will extend into sales process. So that way you can follow the lead all the way through to the end. Marketing automation platforms will also track the performance of your media, and I'll give you an example of that. So you can see how your investment is tracked. And marketing automation, my belief is that marketing automation platforms, along with artificial intelligence is going to skyrocket companies to the front over the next 3 years as AI becomes even more sophisticated, and will support the automation of your communication. So there's a little bit of a, can I measure this so I can see my ROI? Absolutely. But just before we get there, we start to think about what do we need to do to have a proper account-based marketing tool. One of them is, as I mentioned before, it's really important to be clear about what are the commercial goals of the organization. And if we said, for example, we need to grow by 20%. So what does that mean in sales? Does that mean we need 300 clients that spend $50,000 each per year? Then you need to know what are the profiles we're going after. You know, it could be an SME business with more than 200 staff. What's the customer journey that we're going to design so we can track the process of converting the clients over? And then looking at what's the advertising strategy, what channels are we going to choose to reach our audience. So to give you an example of a marketing or an example of a customer journey, we have one here where the cycle typically is you need to create awareness so people know you exist. Then they have considerations. Then there's the acquisition stage. There's the servicing stage. And then is how do we build loyalty around that? We can bring to the client to the point of referral, which is the best type of business you can possibly acquire. But that's an example of a customer journey map, and those are examples of touch points. The great thing about having something like this mapped out is you can quickly identify if there's a bottleneck, where you're losing traction, where you're losing engagement with your audience, and you have the ability to fine tune and improve all the way through. So if you're looking to identify what's my ROI on my advertising spend, this is a simplified version, but we're currently doing something similar for a particular client of ours, actually for a few clients of ours. But let's say we spend $500 or $1,000 on LinkedIn, $1,000 on Facebook. We run an EDM campaign to all our customer base, maybe even an acquired database. We spend $1,000 on Google, $1,000 on SEO, and $1,000 on radio. We would drive all the audience to a landing page. On that landing page, what we found is typically people have one question there, one button to push. We found having more than one, preferably three, increased the engagement a lot more. But more importantly, as they click the buttons and they answered a couple of questions and gave us their details on a registration page, which is also connected to an automation platform, what happens is the leads are then pushed to the sales team, and we measure where the lead came from. So we can determine how many clients came through from LinkedIn, went to the landing page, went to sales, and what we converted then after engagement with the sales team, of course. And that way, in a simple form, or a simple example as we have here, we can really determine not only the engagement that we got from, say, a channel like LinkedIn, but more importantly, how many people went to our landing page, and then how many people we were able to generate business from. And that's a simple way of determining your return on investment on your advertising spend. So we have the last poll. Luke?
It has just been launched for everyone.
Do you have a new growth strategy that considers the new business landscape?
So the results slowly coming in, that's it. Just a couple more votes to go, guys. I'll leave it up for another 30 seconds. Okay, gosh, stop. Karim, can you see the results?
Yes, okay, very good. Okay, Beautiful. We can close that. So just to summarize that, back to the key takeaways. So as far as strategy, I think that to get everybody to think like a progressive company is important. Operational efficiency, there are multiple opportunities by integrating the technology that you have and choosing technology to fill the gaps and improve the workflow of an organization is clear. And marketing trends, invest intelligently in growth for the future today, because it'll pay off dividends once we come out of this. I do believe it's going to be a bit of a long, drawn-out process before we get out of this, because history tells us that every time we have a deep drop, the recovery period takes a little bit longer. Nevertheless, we can move on to Q&A. So if there's any questions out there.
We encourage all our listeners and attendees to ask questions via the Q&A option or via the chat. We've had a couple come in, Karim. The first was, does it take long to set up a marketing automation tool, and who and what is usually involved?
So a marketing automation platform, let's say I'm going to use HubSpot as an example because we're very familiar and we're partners with them. It depends on, how far do you want to go with it, because it is a broad tool. But to set up initially with the CRM, it can take a couple of weeks. Developing the personas and the profiles may take a little bit longer, and then categorizing everybody correctly will take an investment of time as well. But the key people that I would say are important in the process would have to be the sales and marketing team. Potentially, I always like to bring the CFO in, because once you get them on board and they understand the ROI, they're more likely to support the process. And obviously, the CEO or the leadership team, because they can see how the investment in this process will open up a different way to approach the market. So CFO, Chief Marketing Officer, CEO, the executive sphere or the frontline team is the people that I would recommend. As far as time, I would allow yourself probably 1 to 3 months, depending on how much time you really want to dedicate to it. Okay.
And a lot of this topic is, how to also integrate technology into our workforce and into how we use technology. So in your aspect, do you believe many people will return back to the office, or do you see an uptake in people working remotely and working from their homes?
I think we will never go back to how we were before. Every time we have, massive change, it's like an elastic. Once you stretch it, it'll never go back to the same shape. I think that's the same case from now. People have worked remotely, and there's been an investment in that remote working environment by many companies. They've probably assessed whether productivity has suffered or not. Our experience is our productivity went up. And I think that the opportunities that remote working provide is not only lifestyle for the person working remotely, but also the opportunity to think about now, for example, if you find a candidate for a role that is perfect, but it happens to live in, if you're a Sydney-based company, I'm assuming, they happen to live in Coffs Harbour, the idea of saying no immediately is now gone, because you can think, you know what, that person fits my team perfectly. Yes, they are in Coffs Harbour, but, we've got the infrastructure and the ability to, have them do their role effectively and efficiently. So these opportunities are not going to be opportunities that I think employers are going to walk away too quickly from. And the flip side also is, now if you've got 50, 60, 100 people working in your office, you start to think, well, if 20 or 30% of them worked from home, do I really need an office this big? Can I reduce my costs? And if I can reduce my costs and make 20, 30% of my staff happier and more productive, it's a no-brainer. So I don't think we're ever going to go back to it.
Yeah, there's a couple of articles, this week that have been released, regarding corporates and the idea of, do they need those big office spaces anymore in, your major cities, and the cost that's associated to that. So I guess if they can save cost in leasing, they can even put it towards other aspects of their business, such as, what we've talked about today.
Absolutely.
And there's another question I can see has come through our Q&A section regarding personas. And it goes, do you have any tools or guides to help businesses or, and individuals to develop these personas?
Yes, we developed a tool that we share with our clients that takes them through a step-by-step process that they can do themselves, or certainly reach out to us for help to develop the personas for their business. So yes, we do have a tool, a very good tool, by the way, as well.
Okay. I think, as I can see, there's no more. I'm just going to check out Facebook page. I encourage all our participants, as we're also live on Facebook, and we've got people viewing in on Facebook too. So if anyone else has any questions to ask, you can also ask via our comments section on our Facebook page.
Did I just see something come up on Q&A?
Yeah, just now. Can you see it, Karim? Since when will since we will utilize more technology, how can we protect our data from cybersecurity perspectives?
I'm not a cybersecurity expert, but all I can say to you is that I know that there's been a lot of focus on cybersecurity, and there will continue to be a lot of focus on cybersecurity. I'm working with a technology company at the moment, and this is something that we're exploring very carefully, because as people work remotely, then we also need to know that there's the security around that, and they're currently looking at how to package the whole remote working, which means not only will they providing the voice over IP and the 3CX or Zooming technology, but they'll be looking at also providing the internet connection so that they can secure the, the pipe for which information is shared, so that they can secure the data for the business. So cybersecurity is not only, I can't say it's been a recent focus, it's been a focus for quite a few years, and it will continue to be a focus.
And on that topic, yesterday we had a forum with the Australian European Business Council, and when they were discussing free trade agreements, they brought up the fact that one of the chapters for the free trade agreement between Australia and Europe is the idea of security and how to ensure we protect the security, cybersecurity and all this. And they said that will be one of the last chapters that will be closed, because it's a topic that it's incredibly difficult, and it's everyone has obviously concerns in that arena. So it's interesting to see that this topic is talked about in every aspect, I think, of our businesses at the moment.
Absolutely, and we've seen recently there's a couple of businesses that have been hit by breach of security recently here in Australia. So the reason I say it's an ongoing concern, because every time let's say you create a patch or you create some sort of security system around a hole that have been able to get through, I think they will continue to look at other weak points to penetrate. So it will be an ongoing process. It's not one that I could see ending anytime soon.
Correct. I can't see any more questions coming through. If participants or any of our listeners on Facebook do have any other questions, we encourage you to just make a comment on our Facebook page, and we can pass those comments on to Karim. I'm sure Karim will make available through the chamber this presentation. Actually, we've just had one come through now. Karim, what is the average cost that a company should look at for automation?
Look, that's a very broad question. My experience is that automation, if we're talking about technology automation, it's becoming more affordable every day. Why? Because a lot of the technology have very sophisticated APIs that are easy to plug into. For example, when we looked at integrating Xero to Teamworks, it's simply the automation or the integration capabilities were already built into the software. Yeah. And we're seeing more and more of that being available. There are great tools like Zapier, which when the APIs are not there or haven't been designed to talk to each other, Zapier makes a good plugin that will bridge that. So when you look at costings, it depends on how many different, I guess, apps you're connecting up or platforms like Xero or Teamwork and HubSpot and so forth. And secondly, do they all have that ability to plug into each other, or do you need to implement Zapier to help to assist that? But when you look at costs, the costs have come down significantly. I don't want to put a number around it, but it's not an unbearable cost.
Okay, that's good to know. I'll just double check so anything's coming through. As I was saying before, guys, if this recording will be available on our Facebook page. So if you have any other questions, please leave a comment, and we will share them with Karim. I'm sure Karim will share this presentation with the chamber, which we will be happy to share to all participants listening today, and then also share Karim's contact details. So if you have any other questions regarding automation, regarding growth via sales and marketing, please feel free to contact him. We'll make his details available. And this recording will also stay on the Chamber's Facebook page. So if you need ever to refer back to it, it will always be there. If there's no other questions, I will thank Karim for his time with us today. Karim, do you have any other last comments you want to leave our panelists with?
Yes, one last thing, and that is, yes, if anybody wants the tool for developing the personas, by all means, send me an email. And actually, I'll just go, here we go. And for the people who came into the webinar, we'll also offer a free assistance in setting up a CRM in HubSpot, which, by the way, is for free in HubSpot as well. So by all means, reach out to me, and we'll give you all a free e-hug, because we've all been tied up at home and probably missing one. So thank you very much from my end, and back to you guys.
Thank you, Karim, and thank you for our participants. The Chamber will continue to bring more webinars, moving away from the crisis, and see how we can better mitigate and manage this situation, and as always, to increase growth within our businesses and in productivity. So there will be more. Stay tuned via our Facebook pages, our LinkedIn, and our emails and our other marketing methods. Thank you, Karim, and thank you for our participants, and I wish you all a very pleasant afternoon. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.